Yeah, really excited. Obviously, coming down here to see the men makes it a lot more real, and just knowing that it's going to be kicking off for us next Thursday is really exciting. And it's always like the build-up is like, I just want to get going, just want to be there first day, get out in the field or with the bat and just get going, really. And it feels like it's been a long build-up, but we're ready to go.
I've been going around the country, obviously, with cricket and looking on buses and posters, and I'm seeing like all this dual branding, which has been great. 2 Ashes, the way it's been promoted. How does that feel, actually, as players, seeing, all the marketing with men and women held at the sort of same level in this big series?
It's wicked. I've absolutely loved how the ECB have marketed this, and I think it's made a real difference to getting people on board and coming to buy tickets and hopefully come watch us, and it's certainly something we want to do. We want to inspire the people and entertain the people that come watch us, and we're really going to need that sort of 12th man behind us. But yeah, it's big, and I think the boys have really got on board with it as well. Like I've had a chat with Brody about the pitch for Trent Bridge next week. I haven't played there before, so trying to get as much intel as we can, and I think just piggybacking off the men's game a little bit has really helped to raise the profile of the women's game, and it's set to be a blockbuster series.
Sophia, it is an unusual thing, isn't it, nowadays, that we see such sort of dual marketing, I suppose, for the men's and women's game. A huge picture of you alongside Mark Wood. I mean, these are important things, though.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, being my first home Ashes, it definitely feels like one of the biggest series that I've ever been a part of. And yeah, it's brilliant to see the branding and it advertised as one series. And I think we can really feel the support already. So hopefully a lot of people turn out at Trent Bridge next week.
Ebbs, I'm not saying it's a long time since you were playing Ashes cricket, but it is a different world, isn't it? That you look at what we've got now.
Yeah, it's game changing. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm bitter about not making money in the WPL, not getting all the goodies that the girls get. I kind of retired just before they started getting paid, and maybe I could have dug deep. Catherine was still just going, so maybe I could have held around a little while. But look, I have to say it's incredible watching from. So I've given my age away a little bit, but I'm pushing 30 years now, being in the game, and in some ways I feel really blessed seeing the transition from let's be brutally honest, people didn't really care that much about women's cricket. Most comments were, do women even play? To now you can say to young girls, look at your heroes, that are about to go and play in the Ashes, and they're travelling the world. They're at the best. So it's kind of, it's quite inspirational, actually, seeing what has changed and how the girls are on the pitch. I'm really inspiring the next generation. Now it's hopefully they'll go out there and win it as well. From an English perspective, I think what I've noticed over the years, you look at 2009 win at home, really leveraged women's cricket here when they won the summer here in the Ashes T20 World Cup, and then 2017 had a major impact, and I feel that this summer could have another major impact. Just keeping on that pedal, the foot on the pedal. So look, no pressure, girls. I'm sure you'll have a fun summer, but there's no doubt that with what we've seen with the marketing, with the build up of this summer and success on the pitch, it could really lead to some exciting things again.
Heather, how's the build up been? Because look at the scorecard from that 3-day warm up. Drawn match, it looked like runs were flowing, over 600 for your side.
You know what, Henry, it's been so nice just to focus on red ball cricket. We've actually had a really lovely build-up, not just the 3-day game that we had against Australia A this week, but the weeks before that. We've just been learning how to play with the red ball because we don't do it very often, and everyone around the group's had a real growth mindset about that, and exciting because it's something new, and everyone's been really open to learning and trying to develop, and certainly seen that over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, it was good fun. Pretty dead wicket down at Derby, hoping for a little bit more pace next week, but really good run out for us, I think. Obviously the runs that we scored, we want to go big. We want to score at a decent rate and put pressure on the opposition that way, which we obviously did, which was great. And we had a tough day in the dirt yesterday, which is really good prep, and working out a few different plans, and obviously trying to nail down that final 11 come Thursday next week.
I'm intrigued in the build-up because I know years ago, the men went out to these camps where they were doing sort of full-on fitness army camps. I know you guys went to the Lake District. Was it like that, or was it just chilled out, overlooking Windermere? What were you doing?
There's a lot of cold water immersion, wasn't there, Dunks, which we weren't a massive fan of. It was good, actually. It was just nice to get the girls together in a setting that isn't in England kit, isn't at Loughborough, isn't around a cricket pitch, and Yeah, it was good fun, wasn't it, Dunks? Like, there was a bit of paddleboarding.
I mean, I don't really like cold water at all or heights, so I did find it very challenging. But it was great. I think as well, just being like a little bit uncomfortable in those situations, kind of coming together and just chatting as a team, like what we want to work on as a team going forward and stuff. It was great. But yeah, for me, the cold water. By Wednesday, I was like, guys, time to go.
Well, this is quite an interesting development of the side, though, isn't it, Heather? Because you've got some big characters that aren't in the dressing room. Most obviously, Catherine Sciver-Brunt. I mean, it is going to be a different feel of an England dressing room, isn't it?
Yeah, I think anyone of Catherine's personality and stature in the game is always going to be a massive loss. But I think with international cricket, things just move on so quick. Like, similar when I was injured last year, you just kind of the dressing room gets on with it, and everyone kind of forgets about you, which I guess is how it should be. But yeah, I'm really excited for the young bowlers. Actually, like, there's a big opportunity for those girls to go and make their careers in an Ashes game, and those young players are really full of confidence and really want to make their mark. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how they go, and there's a really good vibe around the group. I think we feel really calm and relaxed, and we've done a lot of work around being a lot more open with each other and communicating a little bit better, and being at the lakes and jumping in cold water was a little bit a part of that. Like, obviously we did some of that stuff, but also it was about us coming together as a team and having a chat and really trying to be really open with each other and how we get better as a side, and having really open conversations when we're on the cricket field as well, which I think hopefully will be useful this summer.
Who led that, Sophia? Whose idea was it to have that time away and to have these sort of changes in dynamic, I suppose?
Well, I guess a lot comes down to Heather and Louis, really, just kind of identifying potentially where we've kind of gone wrong in the last few years in the big competitions and wanting to work on that as a team. I think as a team we really identified that speaking openly and honestly was going to be the best way for us to improve and to move forward. So it was a great chance for us to practice that there and bring it into a cricketing environment in the last few weeks. So yeah, it's been really good.
I've been trying to get it to stick, the Louis ball, Baz ball, Louis ball. It's not quite seeming to stick. But how is it going to be for him? Obviously, he came in and you guys had the T20 World Cup quite quickly, but this will be a decent amount of time for him to get his teeth stuck in. What have you taken away from, 6 months or so of his leadership? What have you learned about him specifically?
I think I've really loved having Louis in the last 6 months, and I think for me he's been one of the coaches that has believed in me and backed me the most that I've ever had in my career, which has been amazing to be able to go out and play with such a freedom and not worry about failure, but just kind of impact the game as much as possible. And I think for the whole group it's just given us that freedom. We're quite an aggressive team and we want to really kind of express ourselves on the pitch and show what we can do, so we've definitely got a space to do that, a really safe space for that. And I think everyone's encouraged to show us the world what we've got. So I think it's been great personally.
So is that what we're going to see, Heather? Are we going to see a similar approach to what we've seen from the England men's side? It is absolutely front foot, we're going to impose ourselves on the game of cricket. Of course, different formats are going to lend themselves slightly differently, but is that the mentality?
Yeah, I think there's similarities. Obviously, it's been really enjoyable watching the men's team's revolution. I think the biggest one is in the psychology of how they're doing things, and certainly taking bits from that. And obviously Louis was around the dressing room when that kind of transition happened, so it's been interesting to chat to him obviously about that. But obviously we're our own team and we have our own strengths, and you want to play to your strengths as much as possible, and we also want to go out and entertain and get people on our side and supporting us. And I think as a group we're at our best when we're free and really clear how we do things. And obviously we're used to playing white ball cricket, so red ball cricket, obviously there's differences. The ball moves for a little bit longer, but ultimately as a group, like we want to put pressure on the opposition. We want to absorb when we have to in red ball cricket, but also find a way to take the game forward. And there's certainly a lot of similarities, and hopefully we can both have really successful summers and really entertaining summers as well.
So Australia, obviously you guys, actually I suppose the difference now is that you have a chance to see these players around the world, franchise cricket. What have you learnt about the way they're playing at the moment, how they might come out at you this summer?
Yeah, well, first of all, they're a really good side. Like they've earned the right to be the best team in the world, and a lot of things are going to have to go right for us to beat them. We feel like because they're so good. Like, we have to be the disruptors a little bit and try and do things a little bit differently, and think outside the box. But there's certainly a belief in us as a group that we can do that. But they've got some very good players that we're going to have to try and find ways of counteracting and try and play to our strengths as much as we can. But yeah, it's exciting. You always want to play against the best team in the world, and we've had some brilliant battles that ultimately they've came on top of recently. But yeah, hopefully we can use the home crowd and conditions to our advantage and really go at them hard.
Sophia, is it quite exciting having that mentality, being the disruptors? Because they're there to be taken down, that Australia team, and they are, so sort of successful in the last decade. I mean, it must be quite fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like Heather said, they've been exceptional the last few years and are the best team in the world. But I think for us, it's really exciting to have that opportunity to try and do something special this summer and, just kind of change the way that the game's going. And I think the Lionesses for us are a massive inspiration as well in terms of what they did last year with football. And, if we can do something special this summer, hopefully that could, really inspire a lot of girls and boys out there to play cricket and kind of bring a movement to cricket, I guess, like the Lionesses did. So, I just think it's a great opportunity to kind of, see what happens.
What about your games, girls? So obviously we've been watching you for a long time. I've seen both of your games evolve actually quite a lot. Dunks, you're positive, using your feet a lot, taking the game on. What have you been working on? What do you think you'll try and bring in this summer?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, red ball cricket, it's about the tempo that I go at and how I want to play. Obviously played a lot of white ball cricket, so when I played my first test match, I literally felt like I was kind of learning on the job. But I think having played test matches for the last kind of 3 years now, I'm definitely learning every time I go out to bat and in training and stuff. So feeling in a really good space with that, and still want to bring kind of positive and aggressive intent to test match cricket, and hopefully, like Heather said, entertain some crowds, and definitely bring that to the game, and then continue throughout the white ball summer.
We're in Edgbaston today, big crowd. We're expecting big crowds for the Women's Ashes as well. I mean, I know we've mentioned it previously, but you go back 10 years to the Ashes series and the test match played at Wormsley, beautiful ground, but it is, a club ground in the Buckinghamshire countryside. It is a completely different world. You're at Trent Bridge playing the test match. I mean, this is a different thing, a different animal.
Well, Laura Marsh getting 50 off about 350 balls probably didn't quite bring the crowds in.
Somewhere in the universe, that innings is still going.
I loved it. I loved watching it. It was a great innings by her. Yeah, it does feel very different. My first Ashes was a test match tagged on the end of a white ball tour that wasn't the multi-format format that it is now, and it felt very low-key and just, we better play the Ashes, we'll just have a one-off test match. And now it just really feels like something huge and something massive, and obviously the opportunity to play at such a big ground as Trent Bridge and hopefully have a really good crowd in behind us. And like I said, we really need that support, and feel it can be a big thing for us as a team to really give us the energy and will, I guess, to beat Australia. So yeah, it's going to be good, and as Dunk said earlier, it certainly feels like the most built up series that we've ever played in at home, bar a World Cup.
I'm quite excited that it's 5 days. I've obviously watched and commentated on a lot of the women's tests. 4 days, and it's felt like the minute the first innings score goes above 200, 250, you're thinking this is going to lead to a draw. Having that fifth day now, do you think that will give you more time to really get into it, change your tactics, give you that space to be able to go with the ups and downs? But what's your thinking around the 5 days and the new tactics?
I think it's just going to give a result, which ultimately doesn't happen that often in women's test matches. I think the way we've tried to play test cricket over the last 3-4 years has been really about trying to take the game forward and trying to set up to win. Unfortunately, in the last few games, weather has intervened. Probably lost at least a day in the last 2 test matches, and test matches that were set up really nicely to come to a brilliant crescendo that was kind of lost. And every time we play red ball cricket as a group of players, we feel a bit like we're fighting for the format, and I think it's so important for us to play entertaining cricket, and sometimes there's sort of deader periods in test matches, but I think giving it 5 days kind of gives it the opportunity to set up to come to that. I think Canberra was a really good example. Obviously we lost a bit to rain and it was 4 days, but both teams were willing to sort of put themselves out there and be willing to lose to try and win it. Obviously it ultimately ended in a draw with not a lot of runs or wickets in it, but we certainly are going out there next week to try and win the test match and obviously try and make it entertaining as well.
Sophia, what does the Canberra game mean now, looking at the Test match to come? Because it was an incredible game of cricket, that, and you played a brilliant innings to put England in that position to potentially win it. I mean, presumably that has just given such fire in the belly of your side to win the Test match this week.
Yeah, definitely. I think, always thinking about that Test match and how close we were to getting the win, and you know how crazy it was in that last hour. It was just, thinking back, it just doesn't feel real. But I think for sure it's definitely to learn what we did there. I think the last hour was just a bit crazy, and we could have been a little bit more focused on what we needed to do to kind of get the win. But I definitely think that's impacted how we've gone about preparing for this Test match and how we want to try and win it and right those wrongs really that happened. But obviously a great experience to kind of be a part of that and see how quickly Test match cricket can change in an instant, really.
How much do you want to beat Australia?
I mean, obviously, like I said before, it would be amazing to do something special this summer and bring the Ashes home. But obviously know that it's going to be a massive challenge, and we're going to have to be really good to put them under pressure. But obviously, for sure, it would be unbelievable. So, hopefully we can give it a good go.
The thoughts there of Sophia Dunkley and England captain Heather Knight chatting to me and Ebony Rainford-Brent a short time ago. We've made our way outside, standing on the boundary edge with the Australian fast bowlers going through their warm-ups. The skies overhead, they've got a sort of stormy pregnancy. There's just that sense that something's bubbling up perhaps, but we'll wait and see if we get away with it in the afternoon session. With me, Ebony, and also Alison Mitchell. Ali, you've covered plenty of Women's Ashes series. It is a changing picture. Can you remember one with quite such anticipation as this?
Hi, Henry. Well, do you know what? When you say covered a lot of Ashes series, my mind goes back to 2005, because that was the first time I covered a Women's Ashes Test match, and the winning match at Worcester then gave forth to the women being given by the ECB the same platform as the men in the celebrations in Trafalgar Square. So they were on an open top bus, same as the men were. They came through, they were on the stage with the men, and I think that was the first time probably that the nation collectively had a much heightened awareness, greater awareness of the England women's team, which seems extraordinary. But at that time, they're still very much under the radar. Yes, that match at Worcester was played in front of largely family and friends. But then from then, the change has just been unrecognisable. And when you look at the recent history, I think the changing of the Ashes from playing these one-off Test matches to this point system, the multi-format system that was introduced under Claire Connor when she moved from being captain in 2005 to now running the women's game in this country, to have a multi-format system where you're tested over one Test match, given that the teams, no one plays red ball cricket in the women's game. So it is a one-off Test match, bringing together an extraordinary level of skill considering that. Then the 3 ODIs, the 3 T20s. But since 2013-14, when England won, the Aussies wrestled it back in 2015, and they haven't relinquished the trophy since. So there is an awful lot for England to play for. And no, I can't remember a time when the women's game has had such profile. Of course we can't, because we've got the 100, which has raised the women's game in this country. We've got the WBBL in Australia, the Women's Indian Premier League, the WPL over here, which is now making superstars, but also wealthy career superstars out of these cricketers. So the stage is perfectly set. We talk about the Test match arenas here at Edgbaston, the Commonwealth Games last year. That's fed into the interest this year as well. So no better time to say bring on the Women's Ashes.
Yeah, and the T20 that's going to be played here at Edgbaston, Ebb's already really strong ticket sales for that, and it's going to be brilliant fun. I suppose the big question is, can England do it? Because this Australian team, last 5 years, they've lost 2 ODIs. I think that's it. And one of those was in a Super Over.
Okay, well, let's keep it simple, and expectations, we need to temper them. Australia are 50 over world champions, T20 world champions, current Ashes holders, and also Commonwealth gold champions. So, we are talking about a team that is clean sweep at the moment. The only thing I would say is that I do think it is a blow that Meg Lanning, the captain of Australia, is not going to be present, and the reason is not only the runs she provides, but I would say she's arguably the best tactician in the world game. Just watched her over at the WPL, where all the best players were put together in that tournament, and her strategy and her approach is ruthless. She's very clinical, she's very clear, so that provides a little window. And also the new captain stepping in, incredible player in Alyssa Healy, but she's got a lot to do bat, keep and captain, which is quite a lot. So therefore I do think that gives England a little bit more of a playing field, that opens up the game, and also England have an incredible team. So, you know, there's no doubt it's going to be a tough series. I'm looking forward to it. I think if England play their best, it's going to be a really good toe-to-toe show.
Well, you mentioned Alyssa Healy. She's wandered over. She's on the boundary edge with us. Alyssa, lovely to see you. How are you doing?
Straight into it, yeah. Good, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we're all good. We were just saying, look, you're captain of this Australia side. In some ways, of course, you wouldn't want to be captain because Meg Lanning's missing this series. How excited are you for it to all begin?
Yeah, really excited. I mean, it's somewhat bittersweet to take the reins, but at the same time, it's a really exciting opportunity for myself and the group as well to sort of reinvigorate a new way, a new feel, and it's going to be a huge Ashes series, and even just the way that the warm-up game eventuated over the last few days, I think it's going to be a really exciting contest, which I can't wait for.
Eb's just listed the various accolades. World 50 over champions.
You've got a lot to do.
T20 champions, Commonwealth Games gold medalists here a year ago. I mean, is there anything left for this side to do? How do you keep doing it? And how is the appetite within the squad to keep on pushing?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it really just comes down to the maturity of the group. And I think you look at the side that we've got, there's lots of young kids coming through, and they all just want to keep getting better every day, and they want to keep that legacy going, which I think is really important. And every time we sit down pre-series or pre-big tournament, it's a reassess of, okay, what do we want to achieve? What's next for this group? And they all just say, we want to get better and we want to keep winning. So the fact that they want to do that and keep driving standards themselves is hugely important to the senior players. So that's literally as simple as it gets, and hopefully we can put it all together in this series against what is a really exciting England side and somewhat unknown for the first time for a while.
Alyssa, tell us a little bit about the fact that you haven't got Meg Lanning, we know. You also don't have from the last Ashes Rachel Haynes, who's retired. At the top of the order, there's an opening there. Can you tell us a little bit more about Phoebe Litchfield? Because she's only 20 years old and she's already caused quite a lot of hype.
She's 20 going on 45 in a cricket sense. I feel like she's been playing forever. She's just a really exciting talent and a prospect in Australian cricket, and probably a really important one for us to nurture and let her find her own way in the international game. She's probably going to get thrust an opportunity in this Ashes series without Meg. And I think it's great timing for her to just come in and experience it. And she's done the hard yards. She's put in the time and effort into being the best player she can. And I'm looking forward to just letting her do her thing and showing everyone just how good she is.
I'm looking forward to seeing you captain, your style, everything that you bring. I've enjoyed your game. One question, though, I've got, fitness-wise, you've got a lot to do. Captain, potentially keep, bat. How are you going to balance all of that? What's your thinking at the moment of managing yourself? And are you ready for all of the above?
Yeah, I am. It's a very valid question, and there's no shying away from the fact that my workload has increased significantly. For me, it was a little bit about preparation coming in and make sure I've got everything in my body right so that I can, cope with it physically. But mentally, I think it's just about switching off when necessary. And I think probably the versatility of our batting order might actually come into play a little bit. It's going to ebb and flow the game, and, we might have to spend a bit of time out in the field, we might not. And I think just the ability for our group to really manage ourselves right around the park and sort of help one another out, I think is going to be really crucial. And I think that will come into play. But like I said, switching off is key, and for me, my downtime is my downtime, and no one can even come in my room. So I'll switch off completely and make sure that I'm just refresh, recharge, and can continue to give the energy to the group that they need.
You mentioned this England side has a degree of unpredictability. What have your plans been, without revealing too much, but what are the expectations?
Well, the expectation is that there's a certain level of unknown in this side, and sort of real excitement as well. I think I've played a lot of cricket with and against a couple of them now, and seen them what they can do in the white ball format. When you look at Lauren Bell, Izzy Wong, these players that are potentially going to come into the side next week, and for me, I think it's really exciting. We've known what England are going to bring for such a long period of time, and having this unknown and this building of excitement, I think the unknown's on our side a little bit as well. So it's kind of like, I've often said that I think this men's Ashes series is almost a battle of the old boys, whereas I think the women's Ashes is going to be a battle of the young guns, and I think we're going to see the next generation of women's cricket really shine. And I think for me, as an old lady on her way out, it's really exciting.
Have you told Mitch that he's an old boy?
Have you seen how many grey hairs he's got? He just got his hair cut, he's got grey hairs galore, so I think he'll be okay with that.
Have you noticed a greater hype around the women's series? I mean, adverts on the tube, driving into Edgbaston this morning, even billboards on the side of the road. How is it feeling for you?
I just saw an advert on the TV where Moneypenny from James Bond was on, so it's huge. I think women's sport over here has really clicked. I mean, it's not just cricket. I think you can see the support around the hype around the football and everything else. And I think we're just riding the wave of that. And I think it almost feels like a real true Ashes series where we're coming over here, we're in English conditions, we know we're going to have our backs against the wall when it comes to the crowd and it comes to the hostility of the crowd and their support. So it's kind of brings that extra level of spice, which I think is amazing, and it's what we've been sort of hoping for the last 15 years of my career, that we could fill out an Edgbaston or a Trent Bridge. So it's really exciting. I'm stoked to be a part of it, and hopefully we can just show everyone exactly what we can do.
Talk about spice. There was a spicy test match in Canberra last time, but it was only 4 days, and I think we all wish there was that opportunity. How are you, one, looking forward to the 5-day opportunity, and two, do you think it will change your tactics and how you approach the game?
Well, I've tipped it will go 3.5 days just to show everyone wrong, but yeah, look, I think, yes, tactically it does change. I think there's probably less of that incentive to set up a fixture. I think in the past couple of test matches, there's been a real sort of push from external noise to make something happen, and I think naturally 5 days, that something will happen over time. So, yeah, it doesn't really change our tactics at any point. It probably just gives us more time to sort of assess how the match is going and how we're feeling and how we're playing. So we even saw in the warm-up game, the 3-day game, even in that, the back end of that day 3, people are playing shots that you traditionally will hope they won't in the test match because we've still got 2 more days. So I'm really excited by that, the opportunity to play 5. Hopefully it's not rain affected and we can see a result, more importantly. Hopefully it goes our way, don't get me wrong, but a result I think is going to be great for the game.
We're seeing it across cricket, Alyssa, but franchise cricket means that perhaps those rivalries are a little bit different because you do know so many of these players from Women's Premier League or WBBL, whatever it might be. Is there still that Ashes spice?
I think so. I think it's still there. I mean, it's still one of the hottest series on our calendar outside of a World Cup. So, yeah, it's still there. I think even more so you want to beat your mates, I reckon, and there's always a little bit more banter when you're coming up against your mates. So I'm not saying we're all chummy, but I think you definitely got the opportunity to get to know one another more, and I think it'll only make for a more enjoyable series, I think.
I was going to say about that with the spice, if you like, because you do know each other so well, more so than, Ashes contests back in the ages, because you've got so many leagues around the world where you all play with and against each other. Can you almost tease each other, rib the opposition a little bit more, because actually it can be done in a friendly way, because you know sort of what digs to make and what floats someone's boat. And we always know that you can be vocal behind the stumps, and that's an enjoyable part of watching the game. It's part of the entertainment value. So does that add to the spice, the fact you know each other very well?
Definitely adds to the banter. I mean, the sledging hasn't really been a huge part of the women's game. The banter's always been there, and it's all in jest. I mean, you can see it the way that both teams go about business. They've always got smiles on their faces. So, yeah, I think it adds to it. I mean, I think Sophie Eccleston left me on red the other day, so it's already started. So, yeah, it's just part and parcel of the modern game now. You've got to get used to playing with people. So the art of sledging has sort of become a little bit fallen out of the game. But I don't see the level of spiciness being any lower than what it normally is.
One thing I was thinking for you as well is going to be quite tough choosing a team. I was looking down, I would say you've got some of the best all-rounders in the world. You go to Ash Gardner, Grace Harris has stepped up in the WPL, Annabelle Sutherland's in form. How are you going to really go about selecting that side? It's going to be hard work.
It is. It's hard work, and balance is probably key, and probably mixing youth and experience as well. I mean, we're going to need some experience at certain times throughout this test match. We know we're going to probably need to defend at times and think our way through. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. We're blessed with all-rounders, and that's what we've sort of been able to develop, and it's been so amazing for our white ball cricket. I mean, Annabelle Sutherland got thrust at the top of the order in the warm-up game, made 100. So the versatility of these players and these young kids is incredible. So, look, it's going to be tough, but yeah, we're pretty settled on a lineup at the moment. Probably 1 or 2 changes, and exactly how it looks is probably our final comment. And have a look at the wicket and see what we're going to get. But yeah, the team's really settled, and I'm really sort of pleased with what we've got in the change room and what they're going to bring.
Just finally, having won all that you've won, and having had the Ashes for 10 years almost now, does it bring an extra pressure? Do you feel that sense of, okay, right, if we lose this, oh goodness me, this is a dynasty that's sort of damaged in a way?
Look, it would be a little bit harsh to think that way. I mean, at some point in time, we're gonna lose games of cricket, and that's part and parcel of international sport, right? Teams are really, really good. You can't be at your best all the time. You try to be, but it'd be really harsh to think that our dynasty is almost broken. I think the way that we've been able to bounce back and continue to improve, I think we kind of judge ourselves more on that. And the way we've just been able to consistently turn up and play in big moments is, I think, puts us in really good stead for this series. England are going to come hard at us, and we know that. It's probably just about absorbing that pressure and those moments, and just sort of finding our way back into the moment, into the contest, and putting it back on England when we can. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the challenge of it for our group. I think it's another opportunity to reset and make ourselves better and accountable.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Many thanks, Alyssa. We'll see you out there in the middle about 10:30 Thursday morning. Cheers. Thanks so much for your time. Good to see you. And she mentioned Mitch. That's Stark, her husband, who was standing, and he's still there actually with the Australian bowling group as they prepare for the afternoon. Ebbs, always interesting chatting to Alyssa. She's very honest. You sense she's not calculating, she's just speaking.
Yeah, she's really... I think this is one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to in the Women's Ashes is how she goes. And I think if we go back a few years, and can't say the words she said, but that she gave it some spice in terms of some words in the build-up to the Ashes. I think she's a slightly different cricketer now. I think, she's got maturity, experience, she's been around the world, but she's still got that little aggressive factor into her, and she's also quite calm as well. So there's quite interesting characteristics that she has. So I think she'll want to impose her style. I don't think she's going to want to jump under Meg Lanning's style. She's going to want to come out and let people know this is my brand of how we play, which I think will be quite out there. I think she'll want to come hard, but also she's going to have to balance herself, and that I want to see how she evolves, not just in the Test match, but all the way through the multi-format, because it's a lot to do. But look, I think she'll be great fun. She's got a lot of experience and such a good player. She's going to bring a lot to this Ashes, and it'll be fun to watch.
Can England win it?
Yes, they can. And where it will come from is maybe not always where we expect. You look at how Izzy Wong just performed in India recently, and she completely got up with the crowd, the energy, everything. And so although we might not have the usual suspects of Catherine Brunt, I think players like her will come to the fore. Tammy Beaumont is back in form with a point to prove. After that double century in the warm-up is great, but she was dropped from some of the white ball stuff last year. She felt that pain and will want to impose herself, so she'll be at the top of the order. And they've got most probably the best player in the world, I would say, Nat Siver. Heather Knight's a great captain. So they've got the players. I think it's more about the psychological edge. Can they really believe that they can beat them at home? And with the crowd advantage, I think this is their best chance in the last few years.